Hey Geekscapists, welcome to a brand new Geekscape podcast. Welcome back. If you guys are like, hey, Geekscape's my home, I want to hang out and see what Jonathan's got to say about movies, video games, and comics. Well, I'm honored because pull up a chair and find your place at the table. We're going to talk a lot of video games and some comics and some comic conventions and toys and all that stuff coming up. We're gonna do this very much like a classic Geekscape. There's been a lot of politics and a lot of serious issues on Geekscape over the last few months, and I'm like, you know what? We need to reset. Let's get ourselves serious, because today would have been, moment of silence, the first night of Comic-Con. This would have been preview night, and we would all be down in San Diego with Matt Kelly and Derek in the Geekscape team at the Geekscape booth, and that's just not to be, because the convention is now online. So Comic-Con at home is going on. You guys can go check out Comic-Con at home. I poked around at it, and we got some new t-shirts. This is an old one, but we do have some new t-shirts. Those are live. I just haven't pushed them yet because things have been busy. There's a lot going on here at Geekscape, and I'm super excited about it. I've got a great guest, my friend Brett Weiss, who's a bit of a gaming historian. He wrote the NES Omnibus. He knows all about the Super Nintendo. He also is doing a new edition of the NES Omnibus. So if you guys are retro gamers, that's really what Brett's all about. He's like classic Nintendo, classic Super Nintendo. He's a big-time retro gamer. He's got a YouTube channel. He does the books. He does everything. He's here to talk to us about retro gaming. I also want to do something that is new here on Geekscape. It's something that I haven't done in years, actually, but it's something I've always imagined that I've always wanted Geekscape to have this element to it. I never wanted to do Geekscape by myself, not just having guests and things like that, but I've always wanted to have a co-host. Geekscape is supposed to have a co-host. It's always supposed to have a co-host. You can't just like watch me talk movies, video games, and comics. Like, who wants to do that? There's another thing. I wanted to start doing Geekscape Lives in 2020. Well, that plan didn't happen. I wanted to do a monthly show here in LA where I could get up on stage and bring in guests and do some comedy stuff. And you remember Geekscape 400, where we had a 400th episode of Geekscape, and it was live, and it had like a late night table and all this cool stuff, and it was a bit of a variety show. That's what I want to do once a month. And I had a co-host for it. And then Corona. And then the pandemic and all this, and Geekscape Live in a theater once a month here in LA was not to be done in 2020. We'll do it in 2021, but it's not going to keep me from introducing my co-host. Let me just bring her out here. She's the funniest person I know. I think you guys will all agree with me. And she's been on Geekscape before. Here she is, my friend Katie. Katie, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. That was such an intro. Like, I feel like I can't meet this.
No, I mean, you just watch me flub and talk for a bit, and then just hit a couple softballs out. You know, just like
honestly, what I see right now is that you're in an abandoned building at the moment.
So last couple of weeks, I put that chair there just so that people. No, it's my room. The last couple of weeks, I've been telling the Geekscapists that Heidi's roommate was moving out, and we've been doing the show from Heidi's room. Well, I'm not doing the show from Heidi's room anymore. I'm doing it from the empty room that her roommate literally left yesterday. I put that chair in here, so you know it's mine. That chair right there, you know it's mine. It's Jonathan.
The roommate left it pretty dang clean. Like, there was nothing on those walls.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was going to throw out all those posters. No, she took everything. She took everything. But she left amicably. I moved in, and it was always designed that this would be the office and game room. And we're in it, but there's nothing in it yet. So we're doing the episode before I moved in. There's a desk. I have a desk that I'm doing the show from.
Sure you do.
And I got my microphone. I'm going to start bringing in my gaming consoles.
Nice.
Setting them up.
Setting up a game room.
Setting up a little game room.
Yep. That's
mainly so that if I want to play video games, Heidi can be like, can you just do that in the game room? Does that have to be something you do in the living room? She put up with me doing the show in her bedroom for months.
I saw that. She has a very nice bed. I just want you to know that.
For months.
You lucked out with that, but yeah.
Jim Pellegrinelli actually has a great note, and because I moved a lot of my stuff in storage and transitioned from my apartment to a storage unit and then I'm slowly bringing stuff over, Jim actually has solved this problem that Heidi and I have been discussing, and I think we're going to solve it right here, right now. Jim, I think you're right. I think it could use a giant Van Damme poster right behind me. And I do have a giant Jean-Claude Van Damme poster. It should go right there. So when we have the discussions about maybe we should, she's an actress like you are, Katie. Maybe if we have the discussions like, oh, we should keep that wall bare for, self-tapes and things like that. No. That wall's going to have a giant kickboxer poster on it.
Well, I'll let you know, and this is just for Heidi and all actors. We have set up personally a little bar right here with a nice little backdrop that I could roll down for a lot of my auditions and other hosting gigs and things like that.
You installed that? You installed that little?
Yeah, it's just like a curtain rod.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Heidi, you're not watching this right now.
She's like, I'm not on. I'm done.
But you will learn soon enough that is what's going to happen. We are going to put a rod across the wall over there. You can pull down a blank wall whenever you want to do your self-tapes. Mm-hmm. But it's Van Damme time for the most part. And I mean, it's a glorious poster. I've had it since undergrad. It's not just like a dinky Van Damme poster. It's a subway poster. It's one of those giant posters they use in the subway.
You got to get rid of the bachelor pad stuff, dude. You have to merge.
What?
Merge the styles.
Speaking of bachelor pad stuff, today would have been the first day of San Diego Comic-Con, and I was pretty upset about not being down there with you folks. But Hasbro was like, Jonathan, we got something to cheer you up. So they sent me this box, and I was out running errands today. I went to the comic book store. And I get this text with a photo that says, somebody sent you this giant box. And again, I just moved in, so mail is just out showing up for me. And so Heidi sends me this picture of just this nondescript cardboard box. It just says, you just got this package. Do you know what it is? I knew what it was. I didn't want to say it over text. I walked in. I got to tell you, my friends at Hasbro sent me this, a giant G.I. Joe box.
So
this is a free product. I have to tell you that legally. They're not paying me. This is free. That is a legal thing that they were like, hey, just let it, please tell your audience. We sent this to you as a free gift. But I opened this thing. Check out, they've got this new series. Let me tell you about this new series. They got these things called, the classified series, and they're like the really cool Star Wars figures that everybody's fighting for at Toys R Us, because you have to get the special edition Mandalorian, Star Wars Black Label version, and you got all these different, you've got it.
Yeah, it's out in the corner, but yeah.
So they sent me this box, and let me show you, they sent me 5 of these figures from the G.I. Joe classified series. And look at these things. These things are amazing. So here's Duke.
Oh my gosh.
You gotta go with Duke. You gotta have a classic Duke. Check that out.
Dude, I'm telling you, my boyfriend would be going nuts right now for those.
Your boyfriend's my boyfriend now. So you got this. Here's Scarlet. Look at Scarlet with the Phil Noto artwork.
Oh, that's so cool.
Scarlet, she's got she's got the
crossbow
and all that stuff. I've actually been watching a lot of G.I. Joe because Hasbro has them streaming on the YouTube. So it's just coincidence. I'm writing some Super Action Man stuff. And I'm getting into the mode of writing some Super Action Man, so I watch a lot of classic G.I. Joe, and Hasbro has them streaming on their YouTube channel. So
that's nice.
I've been watching them, and then this shows up. So it's in the air. Here's Destro.
Oh my gosh!
If you go to this website, the Hasbro Pulse website, there's actually a Pimp Daddy Destro, where it's a gold Destro, and he's got the fur and everything. He's an arms dealer.
Sure, yeah.
There is a variant Pimp Daddy Destro. That's awesome. And then here's
Hasbro loves you saying that. Pimp Daddy.
Hasbro, thank you for the free gifts. Please send me the gold Pimp Daddy Destro. Here's everybody's favorite, Snake Eyes.
Oh, so cool. You have to get Snake Eyes.
He's awesome. Yeah, Snake Eyes has all the weapons.
He's got literally everything.
Mm-hmm. He's got that. And then my favorite, because he rhymes, I love it in G.I. Joe whenever he says his rhymes, Roadblock. Yeah, big ass gun he's got.
Flim flam. That's a
slam. That's like a gun from a like that gun's ridiculous.
That's definitely from like an 80s
What's up with this gun?
That will definitely screw someone's shit
that
up.
That will clear the roads.
I forgot. Am I allowed to cuss on this podcast?
Yeah, why not? We just
sure, new rules.
So yeah, I got this. I got 5 new G.I. Joe classified
That's awesome.
figures because I was crying about Comic-Con being canceled.
And
Hasbro was nice enough to send me these G.I. Joe classified figures, and I was super, super stoked to get them because to finish the story though. So I get this box, I open it. You all just saw what was in the box. And Heidi goes, "We've been cohabitating for maybe 2 weeks." And she said, "Do you get a lot of this stuff?"
Well,
it's too late. I've got the keys. It's too late. Do I get a lot of this stuff?
Yeah. I say that to my boyfriend, and he's always like, "You're on the lease now, so it's."
You get a lot of freebies. Is that what happens? Is there going to be more toys? Is this all going to be toys? This is comics and toys. She hasn't seen the storage unit.
Luckily, you've got an entire blank room to fill up.
She has a classic tea set in the living room. I got to explain that every time my friends come over. Thank goodness for Corona. I haven't been able to socialize.
I was just going to say.
Got a Victorian tea set. The second you walk in, you're like, oh, this is a Victorian tea set.
Oh, that's also a very fragile thing there. So
it'd be a shame if something were to happen to it.
It'd be a shame if that crossbow went off.
Jonathan, what happened to my classic Victorian tea set?
That would be terrible. I just want to go on the record. I never suggested it. I'm just saying it would be terrible.
Katie, I love you. You're already a bad influence. This will work.
I'm a terrible influence. I have to let you know.
All right, let's throw some comments, and I wanted to get Brett Weiss in here to talk some
I love it.
Video games. Jim Pelgrinelli said, "I love that the 4 Joes that they sent you are the same ones to the old Konami arcade game." Totally. You had Roadblock, Scarlet, Duke, and Snake Eyes, and those are the 4 that you could play in that in the old school arcade game.
Yeah,
Jim, good way to see that. So Neil Fisher also said, 2021, we're going to be down in San Diego. We're going to hang out, and let's do some Geekscape Live. So I'm all for it. Jim Pelgrinelli also did say, Roadblock is always down for some tea and crumpets.
You know he loves it.
What if Heidi just comes home and I have the G.I. Joe figures and I'm doing my own little tea party?
And what if you're just like talking as Roadblock and like, don't be a strumpet, eat some tea and crumpets.
Does it negate having a ton of toys if I'm having a ton of toys but celebrating the things that she has brought to the apartment?
No, that's merging your taste. That's merging styles. You have to do that, dude. It's part of cohabitation.
That's what I'm saying.
Hand in hand. It's
like I got a video game, system, but it's got Tetris on it. You like Tetris? You like Tetris?
There's VR Tetris.
Yeah, you can do VR Tetris. Like if she has a nosebleed. I don't want to do that. She might turn into the lawnmower man and start becoming like super smart. I don't want to do that. She's already the smartest
You want to keep her dumb?
No, she's already the smartest person in the living room. Or she's already the smartest person in the apartment. I don't want her like transcending that, going into the internet and controlling our reality.
Wow. Yeah, every good relationship starts with a lot of control.
So far, so bad. As if this is a new relationship. All right, let's get Brett Weiss in here. Geekscape is Brett Weiss is he's the man. I've been watching his YouTube show. He's got this YouTube series. If you guys check him out, let me bring up his YouTube channel. It's right there, Brett Weiss, Retro Gamer, and he's put out these books. Let me show you a couple of these awesome books that he's got going on here. He published these, the SNES Omnibus, Volume 1 and 2, because there were so many games on there. So like Volume 1 went to the letter M, and then you went to the letter Z on Volume 2. Dude has written a lot about retro games, and he has a lot to say about them. Let's get him in here because he's got an Indiegogo going up right now for the NES version of his Omnibus. Brett, how are you doing, brother?
Hey, how are you guys doing, and gals?
We're doing all right. Yeah, we gotta watch those pronouns. You know,
yeah, I consider guys like a dude thing. I call everybody dude, so I'm
you're not gonna smash the patriarchy with that attitude.
No, I'm not.
Right.
Listen, I have chosen my things to take a stand for, and it's mostly pizza related. So,
Brett, how you doing, brother? Tell me a little bit about this, because you did publish those omnibuses for the SNES. And then you also have a couple different books out. What is the story on this NES Omnibus? Because you had a pretty successful Kickstarter campaign to get the thing rolling. Are you using Indiegogo now for the pre-orders? How does this? I don't know how it works. I don't know any of this stuff.
That's a good question. So this was my very first Kickstarter, the NES Omnibus Volume 1, A through L. And this was my very first book ever to kickstart, because I'm new to the platform, and I've only recently started backing some projects on it. And I just discovered that it's a great platform for pre-orders. Now, typically, traditionally, a lot of people think Kickstarter is strictly for an independent project that doesn't have a publisher, maybe, to get funding for that so you can begin creating it. But more and more people are using Kickstarter as a pre-order platform. That's what I'm doing with Indiegogo as well. With Indiegogo, I'm just extending the pre-orders over to once I had a 30-day Kickstarter campaign, and once it ended, it was very successful. I was very happy about that. People asked me, hey, you know, I still want to pre-order the book and maybe get some backer bonuses. So I've extended it over to Indiegogo just to keep the pre-orders going. That's the long and short of it right there. And the NES Omnibus itself, Volume 1, A through L, every U.S. release from A through L, alphabetical. And the reason it's split into 2 volumes, so every game gets a full page. You know, I didn't shortchange any individual game. And my publisher, with the original SNES Omnibus, that was originally going to be 1 book, my publisher actually suggested 2 volumes. So I had to get 1 book, and so we decided to do that with the NES Omnibus as well. And what's different about these books, in addition to like a synopsis for the game and, you know, just some critiques and whatnot, and maybe just a little insight, I have other writers involved, industry people, popular YouTubers like John Lester, you know, Gamester81, 8-Bit Eric, the immortal John Hancock, Kelsey Lewin wrote a story for the SNES Omnibus. But for the NES Omnibus, I mean, I've got programmers, developers, convention organizers, all these people contributed nostalgic stories. So in each book, maybe a half or so of the games have supplemental stories. And like you're showing page 1 of the Zelda chapter, it actually has 3 pages for Legend of Zelda. Most games get 1 page, but some of the bigger titles and some of the story games that maybe some of the contributors had interesting stories for get more than 1 page. But maybe 30 or 40 of the games get, you know, a couple of pages. But Zelda, being, you know, a biggie, gets 3 full pages. And you can see the back of the box right there. That's different than you're going to see in most books. So yeah, just these are big, massive coffee table books published by Schiffer Publishing, very respected publishing house. So these are, you know, really heavy duty, high quality pages, you know, sturdy hardcover binding, the works. So, and like I said, just Kickstarter is just a great way to take pre-orders and offer some backer bonuses like stickers, buttons, digital desktop, just things like that, you know, your name in the book and that kind of thing.
So, Brett, in order to write this stuff, you had to play like every single game.
Yeah, and the good thing about that is I've been doing this since the 90s. I used to write for a website called the All Game Guide. And so I got a ton of practice doing that. I've been collecting since my ColecoVision in 1982, so I have a massive game collection. Store owners have loaned me games. Some I've played some, you know, just on discs, you know, like
sure,
some games that I didn't own or I've borrowed, you know, and that kind of thing. So, you know, just one way or another. And the games that I'm, you know, just super passionate about, that I absolutely love, you know, I'll give a big full write-up and review. And then like some of the insider insights, the stories from other contributors, they help with the reviews as well, because in their insights, they will cover, you know, what they don't like about the game. And then I'll also, in these omnibus books, just so you don't just have my opinion and maybe some of the contributor stories. You've also got quotes from websites, from respected websites, and from vintage video game magazines, like in the NES Omnibus and the SNES Omnibus. You've got, quotes from like Electronic Game Monthly magazine and Game Pro and stuff like that, just so you get a wide
magazines that we read as kids.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I miss physical media like that.
So you started playing video games in the Coleco system back in '82, but in becoming a gaming historian, I'm guessing you've tried a lot of different stuff, like the Vextrex and all these different weird retro systems. What's the weirdest retro system that you've played? Because I've played some really weird ones as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's fairly well known, but the Nintendo, the 3D, the Red system, the
Virtual Boy.
Yeah, the Virtual Boy. I actually got mine at a thrift store for $9 with the games within the box, and that's just a bizarre system because it's all red. And I had played it before that, but I'm a late adopter frequently. I don't usually buy a system when it's brand new. I'll wait for the price drop or to find it used somewhere. And I didn't get the Virtual Boy right out of the gate because I was
nobody did.
Well, right, that's the problem. Mainly because it was all red. I was like, I like the idea behind it, and everything. I just couldn't get past it.
There's a pretty good YouTube channel, not to slice from your YouTube audience, but there's a great one called The Gaming Historian, and it's like my lunch ritual to throw up like a 20-minute Gaming Historian video while I eat lunch. And he has a really great one about the Virtual Boy and how rushed it was. And it was not a great idea to make that system. And then the person who had been working at Nintendo since the Game & Watch and before the Game & Watch, who was put in charge of the Virtual Boy, left Nintendo, and then that was like their last hurrah at Nintendo, and it was a complete failure. But other than that, they had a revered, they had a great career. They had a great career. I don't know if they had a great idea.
They had a great idea.
Sometimes it's easy to think Nintendo can do no wrong because they do so much right, but then that and how they didn't market the Wii U very well and things
which is a system I love.
Yeah, it's a cool system. I mean, I've got one, and I enjoy it. When I get a chance. And the Gaming Historian's great. Norm's a good friend of mine. We've done a panel together at an Oklahoma gaming convention, and so I like his channel too. So
cool.
Free to plug other YouTube channels as we go.
Tell him to come on Geekscape sometime because I'm a big fan of that one. And he discovers things that I've never even heard of, like the fact that in Japan there was a fishing radar for fishing that you could attach to the Game Boy and go out on a lake and find fish. It was just it was a pretty well designed and working radar for fishing. That was a Game Boy plug-in. The Game Boy was a pretty incredible system. When you make your omnibus for Game Boy, can I write a little bit in there?
The problem with the Game Boy Omnibus is there are so many games that are hard to get access to.
I was just going to ask that, because I know there's got to be difficult NES games to begin with, but
and the manuals are harder to access, and just the many titles, and I don't have access to enough of those games. But you're talking weird. So in the Game Boy, there's a sewing machine game, that you can hook up to that. And
I forgot about that.
We're talking about, the Virtual Boy being red. There's another console where all the games are red. Do you know what that is?
Was that the Valtrek? Was that the one that was the Vector?
No, the Vectrex has vector graphics, and you put it's just like, there's no color, and you put screens over it. There's a console called the Adventure Vision. This is probably even stranger than the Virtual Boy. It's called the Adventure Vision. And it came out, I believe, 82, around that time. And it's a little tabletop. It's smaller than the Vectrex, and it only has 4 games. And the graphics are sort of a dot matrix design, and it is just bizarre. It's got arcade ports. I believe Scramble is one of them. But it's just a really rare, really bizarre system, and that's definitely one of the stranger game consoles I've played. And then there's the Microvision, which is came out in 1979, and it was the first handheld game console. It had face plates instead of cartridges that you would put on the system, and it had maybe 15 or 17 games. It was Bradley, I believe, and it was not a success. But it came out 10 years before the Game Boy. So if anybody ever tells you the Game Boy was the first programmable handheld console, tell them no, it was the Microvision from 1979. And got one on my game. You can't see it in the screen, but I've got one up there on the shelf.
That's awesome.
It's pretty interesting. There was a Star Trek game for it, a pinball game for it, and it's actually kind of playable. There's a breakout type game, but it's just little squares. I mean, the graphics are just little, like dark black or gray squares.
Did they have any ET game on that, or?
No, they didn't. But there's an ET game on the Game Boy that's worse than the Atari 2600 one because it's just sort of a calendar and all this kind of stuff. It's not really even a game, but there is.
I didn't know that.
It's less desirable than the 2600.
This is why you have to do the Game Boy Omnibus, Brett, to bring the knowledge of like that to the masses.
I would love to. If I ever did a Game Boy Omnibus, I would have to see with my Omnibus books. I write all the synopses for each game, just like the nuts and bolts description of the game / review, just the capsule. And then, I have these quotes and these stories about other people, and then I'll have my memories. But with a Game Boy Omnibus, I would have to farm out the synopses because there's just so many games. There's games I don't have a lot of experience with, games I don't have access to. I mean, I remember when the Game Boy came out and I was walking around Toys R Us and I was like, someday this Game Boy stuff, this is not going to last because the screen's small, the Game Gear is so much better.
It's green. Yeah.
These are just going to be dumped. You'll be able to buy these for $1 or $2 a piece a year from now, and it didn't happen.
No.
The Game Boy is one of the most successful consoles of all time, and I remember freaking out when in 1991 my dad took me to Dallas, or I believe you are, and
that's half an hour from me. Yeah.
That was one of the places where they held the Nintendo Championships, and my dad took me up to the Nintendo Championships in 1991. We drove up from Austin, and one of the big appeals of it was they have 200 Game Boys on the convention floor that you can play.
Cool.
And
oh my gosh, I would have lost my mind.
I was addicted to the Game Boy. Like everybody I knew was addicted to the Game Boy, and from Tetris and just going on with Super Mario Land, which is a weird game. And to go back to the Virtual Boy, the redemption for the Virtual Boy is there are some technological similarities between the technology that they used for the Virtual Boy in the scanning technology that they ended up using again in the 3DS, which is a super successful system.
Right. It was a stepping stone, to technology. It's like the Power Glove was a stepping stone to, most.
Yes, yeah.
So
but you didn't discover the NES until how old were you when you got your first NES?
Okay, so the NES obviously was test marketed in '85. And I don't know that I knew about the test market, but I was very well aware. I mean, I'm sure I knew about it in some sense. I just wasn't overly familiar with it. In '86, I became very well aware of it because I knew people that actually started getting it. And I didn't have one yet because I was still playing the heck out of my Atari 2600, my ColecoVision, my Intellivision, Odyssey 2. Love those systems. I still do. I still play them on a regular basis. And I didn't feel like I needed an NES. I mean, I thought it sounded cool. People would tell me about Super Mario Brothers. I didn't go to. I was 20 years old.
Yeah, you were playing something else, Brett.
Well, in '86, I was 19. And then I turned 20 in '87, and I actually got an NES for Christmas of 1987 from my brother. That was a complete shock to me. He got that level gift for Christmas in NES, and I thought that was awesome. I was really excited about that because I was already collecting games. I had I had a lot of old consoles, and I had the Mattel handhelds, and I had a bunch of cartridges and all this stuff.
Did you have the Power Pad?
To get an NES. I'm sorry?
Did you ever get the Power Pad?
I did. I got it later at a thrift store.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun. I remember World Class Track Meet and dancing.
Cheat your hands.
Of course.
I was on the second floor of my parents' apartment building, and I'm sure we just destroyed the downstairs neighbors.
The neighbors hate you because you're trying to play track and field with your hands.
Yep.
Yeah, you can get these astronomical scores. And with track and field, you got to cheat too. You get a pencil, put it on the buttons for track and field. The game.
Yeah.
There are no Konami codes in life, okay, Brett?
Well, speaking of that, so when Contra came out in 1988, I had to get that. I loved the cover. I'd heard it was a great game. An incredible game. I did not know about the Konami code. I had no clue about it back at '88. I hadn't heard of it. And
how'd you find out about it?
I didn't find out about it till later, Nintendo Power and all that. And
Oh yeah.
maybe a year or two later. But I played Contra almost nonstop for the next few days, and I ended up beating the game with just the lives you get because I played it so much. And I'm dancing and flipping and doing all this, because just it's basically.
Hold on, Brett. Brett froze a little bit. Brett, if you can still hear me and you froze, just jump back in, restart the browser, and jump back in. I'm gonna open my mail. We have a couple comments for Brett.
Hell.
Oh, there you are, Brett. Brett, I'm having some issues with you freezing. Where are you at? There he is. Brett, we're having some freezing issues. Make sure that you've closed all your browsers and everything if you can.
Okay.
Make sure everything on your computer is closed because you're having some streaming issues. I think that he actually did a little max headroom, Katie, because Brett may not be a human. He might actually just be a digital construct.
Can you see me now?
We can, yeah.
Okay. So am I coming through okay?
Yeah. And one question we have from YouTube is Richter, one of our listeners, says, did you ever have the expansion port that was the bottom of the NES? But I think Richter has to be more specific than that because once the Nintendo started going into the late 80s and early 90s, Nintendo started adding a lot of stuff to try and keep the life of the system going. There are a lot of weird add-ons for the NES.
Yeah, I never used that.
The Genesis had a lot of weird add-ons as well. And that was my system. That was the first one that I bought with my money, and Sonic was my game. But of course, we had the NES. We got it for Christmas in '86, and we were addicted to the thing. And that kind of opened it up. But we also traded a lot of games with the neighbors, right? You'd always end up with bad games, like the Friday the 13th game. You'd think it would be cool. Friday the 13th game kind of stinks. The X-Men game, you'd think would be awesome. The X-Men game is terrible.
It's absolutely an abomination. Small characters and a bad overhead viewpoint. And I remember, so I had Hide, which was a horrible role-playing game for the NES. And
I'm going to ask you what the worst NES games of all time are, since you're the man to answer this question.
Well, that's one of the worst to me is Hide. And I had the game, and I don't know why I bought it, because I'm not even a big role-playing game fan, but somehow I bought Hide. Maybe it was a sale or something. And I worked at a place called Lone Star Comics. And there was a friend of mine that worked there. He had X-Men for the NES. And I'd seen the box for X-Men. It looked incredible, the box art. And he told me it was horrible. And I told him Hide was horrible. And we traded, just a complete trade, knowing that
he having the worst games ever.
As bad as X-Men. And I knew that X-Men couldn't be as bad as Hide. But neither one of us won on that one because they're both horrible. But I think I ultimately won because the X-Men looks good on the shelf, but that's about it.
I just couldn't understand it. You're running straight up on the screen, and Cyclops is using laser blasts. It is a completely confusing game. But there were also some really good superhero games on the NES, like the Tim Burton Batman game.
Oh god,
so good!
One of the all-time NES games.
I have never talked to anyone that didn't love that game.
Yeah,
because it's amazing.
Yeah, it looks great. It's got great beat 'em up action, and it's really cool.
Yeah, we got Richter again saying the X-Men were his favorite comic, but the LGN NES game was so bad I never played another X-Men game. And it actually means he missed out on some pretty cool games. There were some great ones on the.
It's like you got food poisoning with gaming.
Yeah, the Genesis had a couple okay NES games, and I actually thought that the solo Wolverine game that they did on the NES.
On the Genesis.
I didn't do that one.
On the NES.
I think the solo NES platformer, they had a Wolverine platformer on the NES that was okay. But Jim Pogarelli is going to ask you, better port of Double Dragon, the NES or the Genesis? Do you think that the Genesis has the technological advantage on that one there, Brett?
Well, the Master System Double Dragon actually had 2 players simultaneous, which
that might be what Jim means.
And then the NES version lacked the 2-player simultaneous during the full game mode. Now there was, if I recall, there's like a fighting sub game, mini game on the NES version where you can play 2 players simultaneous.
Yeah.
Double Dragon. So technically, there's 2 players simultaneous.
They were not.
but not so much. It didn't have it in the story mode. But I got Double Dragon back in the day. It was $50 when it came out, Double Dragon.
Wow.
You know, in 80, whatever, 90, whatever it was. And was it 89, 90, 91, whatever. Whenever Double Dragon came out, it was $50, which was, you know, compare that to today's money, it's probably 100 or something. But I loved it. I thought it had solid beat 'em up action. But technically, the Master System one is better. And then there were sequels that went on. There were a couple of sequels on the NES that were pretty solid. And then,
that's a movie they could reboot at any time.
So, in this question's to you too, Katie. Yeah. What would you say is the worst NES game of all time? I would say that the X-Men game, just because my heart was shattered, was pretty bad. But there have to be worse games.
So I never played the X-Men game, but my personal one.
It plays you. You don't play it. It plays
yeah, right. It plays you.
The
one that killed me was the Ninja Turtles one.
The original one where you had
the original, not the arcade one was great,
sure.
But no, the original NES one. I was like, what are these characters and what are these bad guys and why is this the hardest game ever?
Defusing the bombs underwater is a great way to have gray hair as a kid. And then there was a sequence of the game after you successfully defused the bombs where you then end up on a roof and you had to figure out how to throw a rope across a rooftop to access the rest of the map. And there's pre-internet, there's nothing, nobody at the school, nobody at the lunch table knew how to do it. There's nothing online, there's nothing in Nintendo Power, there is no online. None of your friends know how to do it. You just had half a game because you got to the impossible place where you didn't know how to throw a rope across the building to access the rest of the map. Because remember, you do the top-down thing, and then you'd go into these levels. I gotta say, the best game to do it, that was also an adaptation from a licensed game. I'm gonna say one of the gems, Fester's Quest. Don't at me. The Addams Family movie came out.
Fester's Quest is playable.
Fester's Quest was a pretty good game. I like that game. I think it was a ripoff of a little bit of Master Blaster, but Master, but it was okay. I liked it. I was also 10.
Right.
So,
I think Ninja Turtles was the one that I first rage quit anything.
It wasn't Battletoads?
No, because I didn't play Battletoads when I was a kid. It was like I think I got like worn off by like just the Ninja Turtles game. I was just like, no, I can't do anything amphibian like anymore.
How about that rockin' pause? You remember the pause music in Battletoads?
No,
pause Battletoad, and it just rocks out. It's crazy.
Which you know, there's rumors. There aren't rumors. There are actual screenshots of somebody developing a brand new Battletoads game. I hope that they bring back some of those retro tracks because I remember some of them, especially from the jet ski level. Yeah. Jim Tuggarelli over in Brooklyn says the original TMNT was ridiculous. It took forever, but I was so proud of myself when I beat that fucker. Jim Tuggarelli. No, he's a liar. Katie, don't.
No, welcome,
Katie, welcome to Geekscape. Most of them are liars, okay? Like,
well, it's funny that
if they come to me as a resource, chances are the rest of their lives are not good.
It's funny that there were so many hard games on the NES that kids were playing, like the original Ninja Turtles game, like you said, difficult and convoluted and kind of tough to figure it out, especially if you don't have the manual. And, you know, when people started renting games, you know, there were some like Platoon and Predator, you know, games like that, you know, kids are renting or teenagers, oh, this is going to be great, and then they get home and there's just terrible games. You're not really sure what to do because they're kind of non-linear.
I remember in the Total Recall game, you know, you're playing. It's a side-scrolling game. It's similar to the RoboCop game that you're playing, and you're playing games for movies that you're not allowed to see, but you saw them.
Yep.
Right.
And there's a little person that attacks you in the Total Recall game. He comes out of like a trash can or something, and he kicks you out. And I remember you had to really look out for that guy. And, you just remember, you may think you're doing well in this level, but that little bastard's going to jump out of a trash can, and then it's all over. Bayou Billy, is that is that whitesploitation? The Bayou Billy game, is that white? Do you remember the game?
It's a difficult game, and it's definitely the redneck factor.
Do you remember Bayou Billy? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bring up a picture of the adventures of Bayou Billy.
Yeah. Jim, what about for you? What was the worst game? I'm sorry, Brett. Sorry.
Oh,
I was looking at the gym comment.
It was highlight. The most disappointing one might have been a tie between Super Pitfall and Superman.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, 2600. Pitfall is amazing. Pitfall 2 is even better, believe it or not. And
Miss Pac-Man is better than the original Pac-Man, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But gosh, Super Pitfall was just dreadful. Horrible controls, just clumsy action. And Superman was really disappointing. Once again, beautiful box art. I believe it was Kurt Swan, or just one of those classic
Superman artists, yeah.
Gorgeous art, but man, just put it on your shelf, man. It's a good-looking box. Superman is like a super deformed, clumsy cartoon guy, and with the NES, a lot of the games have these types of anime-looking characters because you didn't have the graphic power to have super realistic, but they could have done better than that. I mean, Ninja Gaiden character looks good, Castlevania.
Yeah. Sure.
Castlevania is so good.
Superman looked terrible.
Some of those games are beautiful. It was always the license game. I just wanted to ask you. I got here is the Adventures of Bio Billy cover, but ask yourself. Let me see. This is a whitesploitation game, is it not? Look, it looks like
why is his head so low?
He looks like a roided out Jim Varney. He's like you remember Jim Varney? He played Ernest P. Worrell. Ernest goes to camp.
Oh yeah, I remember Ernest.
He does. And murders.
Ernest didn't have the muscles or the pecs of this guy, but he definitely has the face.
Billy doesn't have a neck, is what's going on with Billy. Yeah. And then also, Billy's got a chick back there who's really about to pop out.
She's being kidnapped by this bad guy.
By this guy.
If us who are listening to the podcast version, we apologize, but leave us a review.
Just look up the image.
This is what I want you to do if you're only listening to audio. I want you to go to wherever you got this podcast. Don't hit unsubscribe. Just leave us a nice review. And then go online and find the Adventures of Bayou Billy screenshot.
If you're listening to this podcast, and don't like it, just like it.
In the NES era, women were basically there to be kidnapped.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, go ahead.
I was going to say, Rick Doe says, wasn't there a villain named Cajun Cutthroat in Bayou Billy?
Was there?
I can only hope there was.
That's probable. That sounds about right.
I think that Bayou Billy's character is probably a descendant of Custer from Custer's Revenge when you're going down to serious asshole video game characters who are potentially extremely racist.
Yeah, I don't know if Bayou Billy ever raped anyone, though.
What's also weird on the NES is that you see these games that come out and they make a little bit of a splash on the NES, but then when the next generation comes out, 1 or 2 generations later, they become huge franchises. Metal Gear wasn't really a game that we all thought was pretty. It was cool. You could talk on the radio. It had a little bit of stealth in it, but we didn't have the patience for Metal Gear. But
I certainly didn't.
It became a classic. And then obviously the Final Fantasy franchise turned into something huge. The Dragon Warrior franchise was my first RPG. I'm sorry you had to play Highlight or whatever it was.
Highlight, yeah.
But that first Dragon Warrior was incredible.
Well, Dragon Warrior was given away to Nintendo Power subscribers, so a lot of people had it.
I think that's how I got it.
Yeah, I mean, Dragon Warrior and Legend of Zelda were, for a lot of people, the very first role-playing games they ever played. Even if they're not, maybe Zelda's not a pure role-playing game, at least it has those elements.
It has the elements, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people, those are the first RPGs that, in the West that they played. And the NES, one reason the NES is so freaking iconic is because of these legendary IPs that began on the NES. I mean, outside of maybe Space Invaders and Pac-Man, which came before the NES, the NES is just wow. Like I said, it just started so many incredible. Castlevania, Metroid, on and on and on. Just phenomenal.
Yeah, I think that it defined a lot of our childhoods. One of the games that didn't survive off of this did not turn into a franchise, but off of Twitch, we've got our good friend Wizard of Video Games from Canada saying, Chubby Cherub was just, I don't even know. You remember Chubby Cherub?
Well, it was maybe the first nude character you played in the 8-bit era.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
We're also getting a lot of love for the Goonies game.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think it was like Goonies 2.
I think Goonies 2 was a better version, right? Goonies 2 was a better game than Goonies 1. What would you say?
Well, I'm trying to remember. Wasn't on the NES? Wasn't it just Goonies 2?
I think there were both games on the NES. I think both games
At the top of my head. Goonies 2 is the one that's coming to mind right now.
Yeah.
Sure.
I remember those are great. And then there was a Nightmare on Elm Street game. Freddy's Floating Head was one portion of it. There are a lot, like you said earlier, there are a lot of horror games that were based on
movies you couldn't see, but they were games.
Jaws was one of those that, like, I didn't see it as a kid, but I played the game and it terrified me. But it was so good. Like
the game scared you?
Yeah.
That's cool.
I know it's like like I go back and like see it now and it's like, oh wow, I was never meant to watch any horror or anything like that. But yeah, I mean it's such a simple game, but like the tension that it brought, just like that fin just chasing after you.
Yeah, you have to ram Jaws at the end of the game and everything.
Yes.
Which is from Jaws 4, the movie Jaws 4, which is where Jaws has a personal vendetta against his family, which is kind of a ridiculous plot.
Yeah, anything after 1 was just an interesting movie.
Well, is where the shark goes down to the Caribbean on like a blood vendetta to kill Mario Van Peebles. And I remember Mario Van Peebles is the Jamaican dude in Jaws 4, and he gets killed.
Yeah,
and I think that's also one of the movies that, when somebody looks at Michael Caine's career, they're like, dude, why'd you do Jaws 4? He's like, we were shooting in the Caribbean. I was going to be there for months.
Made money. Michael Caine, you give him a check, he'll be in the movie pretty much. He was great as Alfred. So
I've heard his whole thing is like, I look at the script, and if I'm on the first page and the last page, I do the movie.
That's a good way to do it.
I was like, well, you know what? All right.
Brett, what would you say is what are some of the best NES games? Because Jim Pelgrinelli says original pro wrestling was a personal favorite. Good replayability. You could buy it on Amazon. You could buy the dude's head.
So many people love pro wrestling because it was the first console wrestling. That's another thing that makes the NES iconic is a lot of types of games.
Yeah.
NES was the first experience with it. People that didn't live through Atari or in television era, pinball was their first pinball console game, and Mario was in it, which was amazing. As far as the best of all time, there's a lot of obvious choices like Castlevania 3, Super Mario 3, the original Super Mario Brothers. Super Mario Brothers 2 is amazing, and I remember playing through to the end on it, which was just huge because, if you play All-Stars on the SNES, that has the trilogy, there's save points. But memory serves, you couldn't save on Super Mario 2, and I remember beating that, and that was cool. But man, let's see, Batman, which we mentioned earlier, is one of my favorites. That's one of the best games. Hidden Gem is Felix the Cat. It's a lot. Have you guys played that? It's a lot like Mario Brothers, except you get to ride vehicles. It's cute. It's not as hard as, like, say, Mario 2 or 3. So it's a real relaxing platformer because you can just kind of kick back and have fun with it. And he's got his magic bag of tricks. And it's like, if you like Super Mario Brothers and you like Felix the Cat, incredible game.
I'm going to check that one out. It's
it's great.
It's fun.
I'm getting all the
Katie, that's cool.
Oh, yeah. No, Felix the Cat was like one of those weird things that I felt like I was the only person in the world who knew about it,
You had one of those clocks? You remember the Felix the Cat?
I didn't have that, but I do remember those.
Cat clocks. I figured everybody knew Felix the Cat for the Felix the Cat.
I don't think those were licensed, but they sure looked a lot like.
They sure looked like them.
Yeah, but those are great. And let's see, Guerrilla War or Guerrilla War. Have you played Guerilla War?
No, I lived it. What
game? It's called Guerilla War. It's a run and gun game, but it's probably one of my favorite run and gun games of all time. Just a phenomenal game. So
it's not like, is it like Gunsmoke in the way that you're kind of running?
A little bit, top down, straight ahead, up the screen. And,
Ikari Warriors. Ikari Warriors was the
Ikari Warriors, yeah.
Don't yell at me, please, sir. This is my
yeah.
Ikari Warriors, yes.
Ikari Warriors it's an arcade port, but the thing about Ikari Warriors for the NES, there's one tragic flaw in this game. You can get stuck behind barriers. So, and I experienced this firsthand back in the day. My brother and I were playing this, and 2-player. It's a pretty big game for 8-bit. We were a couple hours in, and I got stuck at the bottom of the screen behind a barrier, and my brother-in-law was higher up the screen. He moved back, couldn't, that didn't enable me to get out. You couldn't blow up anything. You're just completely stuck.
No.
And then years later, I'm reading reviews, and that's the fatal flaw in Ikari Warriors. But it's still fun. You're side by side, 2-player simultaneous couch co-op. So great on the NES. There's so many games that do that well. One
of the all-time favorites from Jim is Super Dodgeball. Good Super player versus player. Super Dodgeball gets overlooked. I liked as well. It was a tough game. It didn't explain itself very well, so you had to kind of fumble through it. Was what was the one that was based on the Japanese manga where you're a spy? I mentioned it a few weeks ago. 13? Golgo 13.
Golgo 13?
That was a weird one.
But very adult.
It was awesome. George Pepe said TNC Surf Designs.
Oh, yeah. Great graphics. Good platforming action. That's a fun game.
I like 720. California Games.
Nice.
Wizard of Video Games back in Canada says, did you hear about the unreleased Days of Thunder game that was found recently? It was not worth the wait, but it is interesting. Some of these licensed games would come out and then not happen.
Yeah, it's interesting that they still find ROMs today, all these decades later, that they're still finding ROMs for these games. And it's really cool when someone will take the time to either just put it online, for anyone.
Or to something,
Yeah, or I really love it when they put it in the cartridge and offer it for sale.
Yeah.
I was just going to say one of the coolest ones that they did was when they released the SNES Mini and they threw Star Fox 2 on it. I think Star Fox 2 would have changed that franchise. It is an awesome game.
Yeah, and it seems like it was a Star Fox, like a sort of a run and gun or a platform game or something on the GameCube.
Well, yes, Star Fox was fantastic on the SNES.
Yeah, it absolutely was. I loved it. The graphics
adds like a map system and like kind of an RTS system to it, where you had to decide where to defend and what missions to take on. Because, like I said, it's a little bit of a real-time map strategy thing going on with it that made the game a lot better. I think it would have totally changed that franchise, because you're right. When it got to the GameCube, it was a weird thing where you land on the planets and you deal with dinosaurs and stuff, and it was just...
Yeah, and if Star Fox 2 would have actually come out, they might have just done Star Fox 3 as a shooter, just as a regular shooter, like on the Super Nintendo. So that, in that sense, it might have changed the franchise.
Yeah.
Star Fox today, you look at it, and it kind of has, primitive polygon graphics, but for the time, it was really impressive.
Yeah. I was just going to ask really quick, of the licensed games, like Batman or whatnot, what was some of your favorites? Mine was Chippendale.
Oh, yeah, that's solid.
That game's shit. Chippendale is fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, the graphics were really nice on that. I mean, there were so many games with cartoon-like graphics, and DuckTales, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Love the pogo stick maneuver.
Yeah. Oh, man, I forgot about that.
I think Brett froze again. I think he may have gone back into the internet. He'll come back now. Brett will come back. Jim Puggernell is yelling DuckTales. Wizard of Video Games did say, I'm not Canadian, but I drink like one. I actually have... I thought... okay, I won't even try to address it. I have two old Geekscapists confused, and Wizard of Video Games, I'm sorry. You're a casualty of my stupidity.
How dare you?
The existence of this entire show.
It's okay. At least you didn't say that the guest was a different name, so that's fine.
No. That's okay.
Rick does that.
So, Katie, you'll never forget my name now.
No, I won't. Brett.
A hidden gem was Excitebike, where you could create your own levels. I would say that was no hidden gem.
Mainstream.
Very mainstream.
I came to that late, though. That was hidden gem for me, though. That was insane.
I guess it depends on your experience. It could have been a hidden gem for that person.
If there's a level based on it in Mario Kart 8, I think that I know it's an expansion level, DLC level, but it is mainstream. Did anyone, Rick also asked, actually have fun with the Game Genie beyond the novelty of doing really high jumps or just cheating? Yeah, I mean, you're talking to Brett, who beat Contra without the Konami code, and Jim Paganelli's watching, and he claims to have beaten the original TMNT. So we don't have cheaters here.
I couldn't afford the Game Genie or anything like that. I remember also on the N64, my friend had a Game Shark, and I was just like, what's the point?
Well, with some of these games, sometimes it requires, it takes cheats to see later levels. I mean, some of these games are so hard, you might not ever get past level 3 or 4, and if they don't have level selection, you might never see level 5 through 8 of a game you paid $30 to $50 for.
What would you say is one of the hardest games? I mean, we talked about Battletoads. We've talked about some of these. What are some of the toughest ones? Well,
we've mentioned, Battletoads is extremely difficult, and let me see. I'm just so great at none of them. No. It's funny because I'm not, when I first had my NES in my early 20s and everything, I was a really better player at it because there's no way I could beat Contra now all the way through.
You learn the patterns. It's all pattern recognition. You learn them. We don't have the patience for that right now.
Yeah, or 52 years old now. I don't have the
dexterity.
Dexterity, or getting kind of long in the tooth.
I think
there were so many
has spoiled us as gamers.
Yeah. I will say, playing Ghost of Tsushima right now, there's a ton of different gaming button combos that I'm I need to write these down now because I can't remember what everything is.
You will never be a true samurai if that is what you're.
No, I already am.
The original Ghosts and Goblins is deadly difficult. During the peak of my NES years, early 20s, I played that one just an insane amount of time, but I only got to maybe the 6th level, I think. I never beat it all that time I played it, and I loved it, and I thought it was incredible fun. And it was just brutal. It's just a few mistakes. If you did, just the platforming was so difficult. In addition to the flying projectiles that are coming at you, so much perfection had to be achieved throughout the game. Brutal.
If you don't play it,
it's full of sweat, frustrating.
It doesn't help that you explode into a skeleton upon failure.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah, humiliates you while you go.
That character Arthur literally explodes into first off, he basically gets to run around in his underwear if you get hit. And then if that's not enough humiliation, you explode into like a skeleton.
Let's debate me even further.
He said Bubble Bobble, one of our Wizard video games, Bubble Bobble was hardest for me because I would steal the candy power up and my brother would punch me. What happened?
That's hilarious.
George Pepe says, "Is Ghosts and Goblins the game where when you beat it, you have to do it all over again and really beat it?"
Yeah, I'd always heard there was a harder mode it opened up, but I was never able to achieve that.
Spider-Man on the Genesis, if you didn't play in the hardest setting, you'd get to right before the last level, and the Kingpin would come out and be like, "Yeah, sorry, you got to do this over again."
What a kick in the gut!
Oh my gosh!
I think we just started a war here with Jim in the comments. He said, "I did beat TMNT. If you need me to go to my mom's house, grab my old NES and that cartridge and do it again, I will. It's all about stockpiling the magic scrolls and the lesser turtles and playing through most of the game with Donatello."
Oh, I would love
Jim,
to
I
know
totally
who the
believe you.
one.
I believe you 100%, Jim.
Yeah, I think you just got a new subscriber, Brett.
That was my goal.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's remind the Geekscapists that while we're having fun, we want you guys to go to Indiegogo right now and check out the NES Omnibus. That's Volume 1. It's the first volume of it. It'll take you through the game titles A through L, and that's up on Indiegogo. Let me take a look at this Indiegogo and maybe talk us through some of the cool incentives that the Geekscapists can get if they go and check it out. Here, there's a handsome dude right there. And on the Indiegogo, there you are, Brett. And this is just for pre-orders. Like, the book is done, the book is made. You're using this for pre-orders, and that's why you put it on Indiegogo, because they're not going to drop you if you don't make a goal. So,
right.
Geekscape he's up for another 30 some odd days when you're listening to this. But there's cool incentives for ordering a copy of the book. How much is just like the basic copy of the book?
If you just want the book, I'll be happy to sign it to personalize it however you want, and I'll throw in a bookmark, and I usually throw in some random object, something from my office, a signed Twin Galaxies trading card or something. But just book signed direct from me is $50 plus shipping.
Okay, and then if you go a little extra and do $60, what is that? Oh, that's the hardcover. Well, what does that give you?
Well, they're both hardcover, and I put in I don't off the top of my head. There's stickers, there's buttons, there's things like that. There's now the $70. That's the signed numbered edition. So there are 100 signed numbered editions through 100. Around 80 of them are sold through the Kickstarter, but there's roughly 20 left. So if you want to back it for $70, you get the numbered edition. It's the same book. It's just signed and numbered, limited to 100 copies.
I like this deal here where you actually get for $90 both volumes, the first and the second. You'll get all this
of the SNES.
The SNES. You're going to get the SNES Omnibus. In addition, you're going to get both copies of the SNES Omnibus in addition to the NES Omnibus? Or?
Okay, so there are separate tiers.
Okay, talk to me.
Hardcovers, the two SNES books. So you just get those. And then as you go, there's different options. You know, like that one, you get the NES Omnibus plus both SNES books.
Okay, and that one's $135. All the entire Brett. Wait a minute. I'm looking at this $240 deal, and it says the NES Omnibus plus 6 other books. I'm guessing 2 of those 6 other books would be the SNES Omnibus Volumes 1 and 2. But then, are you just throwing in 4 books that you're like taking from your wife and just throwing in there to get out of the house?
Yeah, there's like cookbooks and
all those Jody McCullough.
How to train your dog.
You guys read Louis Lane War? Here you
Just
go.
books that we can't donate to Goodwill right now.
That's it. No, so the NES Omnibus Volume 1 will actually be my 11th book.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, so I wrote a series of books called the Classic Home Video Games series. That series began way back in 2007. And the original Classic Home Video Games book, it's called Classic Home Video Games 1972 through 1984. I didn't send you a picture of that one, but just briefly, it's every U.S. release for the Atari 2600, Intellivision, ColecoVision, Bally Astrocade, Arcadia 2001, Vectrex, Odyssey 2, all these consoles. And Classic Home Video Games series, these were the first books to fully catalog and have a synopsis for every single game for those consoles, like the NES. The Volume 2 covers the NES era. Volume 3 covers Genesis, Neo Geo, and TurboGrafx. Those systems came out in '89. So there's a 3-volume set. They're just paperbacks. They're black and white. You get some box art and cartridge photos. So they look relatively primitive compared to the NES, the omnibus books. So let me tell you what happened. Here's how it started. So back in 97, 98, I was writing for the All Game Guide. This was an online database to describe, catalog, and review every single game ever created for every console and computer and every arcade game as well. It was this massive project that was being, crowdsourced. And I was a writer for the website, and I eventually became an editor. And I was writing hundreds of synopses and reviews and everything for all these old consoles. Well, that database eventually went under in the early 2000s. They just stopped what they were doing. And we were also working on a book project with the All Game Guide. Well, that got canceled. And so I thought, maybe I can take on something like this myself. And so in 2006, I went to the San Diego Comic-Con, to the only San Diego Comic-Con I'd ever been to. And I met McFarlane Publishers there. And I talked to him, and I didn't really know how the whole thing worked. I said, hey, if you guys ever, they publish reference books for entertainment, for pop culture, for movies, for sports, for all that kind of stuff. And I said, if you ever need any contributor to these massive books, to these big reference books, let me know. Well, 3 days after I got home, I heard back from McFarlane Publishers. Nothing to do with Todd McFarlane. It's McFarland. It's just a publisher that's been around at least since the 80s that does a lot of entertainment books. And they're a literary publishing house, a smaller press. And I'd always had it in my mind that I wanted a Leonard Maltin type book, but for video games. Yeah. Who Leonard Maltin is, he writes movie reviews. capsule reviews in these big, thick books, well, way before IMDb. And as a kid, I loved Leonard Martin's books, and I always thought there should be a video game version of that. So I basically set out to do that with the Classic Home Video Game series. And it's a 3-volume set. It started, Atari, that era, the NES era, and then up through the Genesis era. And then with the Super Nintendo, instead of doing another one of these, soft cover black and white books through McFarlane, I switched publishers to Schiffer, because they publish these big hardcover coffee table books, like the ones you see wherever I am. Over here.
Yeah.
I was going to reach for the books, but they're out of reach. But anyway, you can see them on the screen there. With the Super Nintendo in that era, I decided to do just full-on Super Nintendo. I was going to do a 4th book in the Classic Home Video Game series, which would have covered the Super Nintendo, Atari Jaguar, the 3DO, and CDI. But I had a hard time tracking down CDI and 3DO games or anybody that had any.
With good reason.
I'm going full-on Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Retro game book publishing has changed drastically over the last few years. Back in the 2000s, hardly anyone was writing retro gaming books. And lately, many more people are doing it, and they're doing it bigger and more colorful and hardcovers and everything. And so, you adapt with the times. And so I started to change publishers. And so that's where the NES Omnibus began. So anybody that wonders why there's not a Classic Home Video Games Volume 4, the SNES Omnibus basically took its place. And then, so moving forward, I hope to do more Omnibus books, and I've got some other projects in the works.
Call me up for that Game Boy one. I will write about work anytime, anywhere. And I think that's the one where you're a little tomato and you go through different puzzles. I do want to say that like the 3DO, that was like the most expensive video game console to release when it was released. It had the CD technology early before anybody else did, but it was $400, $500.
If I recall, it was $700 at
Jesus.
Originally released. It was $700, and it was just outrageous. And the
Who had that?
Neo Geo was super expensive as well. And but yeah, the 3DO, it was advanced technology, and the full motion video and all of that stuff.
It had a Wing Commander game. I was so excited to play.
Right.
I realized I could just play it on my PC.
Right. So yeah, that and the CDI were just, they're obscured. I just couldn't get my hands on enough of those games, and so
I've got a crazy portable system that I don't think anybody's ever seen. I don't think I've ever even mentioned it in the 13 plus years of Geekscape. I've got this thing called a Barcode Battler. Do you know what that is? The Barcode Battler?
Barcode Battler.
The Barcode Battler was this almost Game Boy looking system, and I just saw the thing in my storage unit, and I should bring it back. I should bring it out and throw some new batteries on it. But what the Barcode Battery would do, and this is the Barcode Battler would do, is it was a text-based RPG game. That's all it was used for. It had a scanner for barcodes on the back, and what you would do is it came with a couple cards with barcodes on them, and you would take a product barcode. It could be a barcode off of anything, but just a barcode, and you'd scan it in the camera, and based on what the barcode was, you would end up with stats for whatever monster you could fight, or whatever weapon you could use, or warrior you could summon to fight that monster. And I think it was released in 93, 94.
Wow, that's early for that kind of thing.
It's an ugly system. I definitely have it, and I remember my friend Andy and I Xeroxing barcodes off of products and cutting them out in my father's office so they could tape them onto some cards to scan into the game. But supposedly with the game released, and it wasn't anything that lasted longer than a month in popularity.
Really ahead of its time, though.
Yeah.
Riots in Japan with people trying to go into stores and steal products because they had found out that those products had pretty powerful weapons or powerful
people,
things in the game. Let me see. I'm just going to do a quick little barcode.
That's amazing.
Battler.
It's also a really good vocal warm-up. Yeah, exactly.
That's why people cannot have nice games. I found it on Wikipedia, and let me just throw it up on the images. Here's. I
just need you to know that Heidi sneaking in the background is
Heidi
my favorite.
Heidi can come on in. We're going to bring her the bad news of what we're going to do with that back wall.
Heidi.
Don't worry about it, Heidi. Heidi, please. This is an audio based art form. You cannot just come in and ruin it by yelling. We are talking about the Barcode Battler. Let me show you guys. This is the Barcode Battler. I don't know if you can see that. But
wow, that's impressive. I never knew about this.
And you would end up, it's almost like Pokemon. You would end up with these different little monsters. And that's what it looked like. You end up putting these things in. Heidi, we will discuss that as soon as the show is over. But here is what it looked like. You'd scan the barcodes into like a barcode scanner, and you'd end up with these stats, and that is the Barcode Battler.
Interesting.
That's insane. Wow,
I guess I'll bring it out and do a little deep dive for y'all folks later on.
That's cool.
So, Brett, I just want to remind the Geekscapists to bounce over to Indiegogo, search for the NES Omnibus. You can pre-order the book there. Go pre-order the book and maybe pre-order the tier that'll get you the other SNES books.
And subscribe to his YouTube channel. It's really good.
Subscribe to his YouTube channel. Here we go. What I like about Brett's YouTube channel is he just talks matter-of-factly. He just talks like casually about these games. He's like, yeah, this one wasn't so good. I feel like the gaming historian like structures it. He writes it out. He has different segments. Brett's like, yeah, I tried playing this game. It kind of stinks. It's not that good. This game was kind of cool.
The gaming historian, that's his job.
That's his job. What I like is when you were talking about Castlevania 2 and what a disappointment Castlevania 2 was, I was with you, brother. I was with you. It doesn't matter. You can turn into a freaking werewolf. Nobody cared. That game wasn't any good.
I heard a lot. I got a lot of feedback on that episode. People telling me that's their favorite game of all time or their favorite Castlevania game. That's all good. I like to bring out, comments, and I love different perspectives. Whatever game you love is a great game.
Yeah, well, Jim Paganelli just said, hey, Brett, I like
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah,
Jim.
You had to accept his lie that he beat TMNT.
My gosh, you are going to get a troll, John.
Pandering to my audience, and I will have it.
I just recently uploaded a video because I did my 50th Tales from a Retro Gamer episode. So I have some videos that are just uploads, where I'm blogging. I'm just talking about some recent event and my opinion on it, or I'll just talk about just some goofy story, like I talk about a recent episode, or just a recent upload where I'm just talking about this failed date I had because she did not like the arcades, that kind of thing. But once a week, usually I'll do a Tales from Retro Gamer episode, with actual post-production and images and stuff, and planned out. And I just did my 50th one, and it's my 50 favorite retro games of all time. So you guys might.
Oh, sick.
Geekscape, go on over to his YouTube channel. It is Brett Weiss. Brett Weiss, Retro Gamer. Go find it over there. Just Google that into your YouTubes, and you'll find all that content. Brett, I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah. I really enjoyed it. I appreciate it.
We like to have fun.
It's been fun.
We like to talk trash with our audience. We like to talk lying about beating TMNT. Yes. Jim, I know I'm going to get a text from you later about that one. Jim and I went to grad school.
Oh, okay.
I've seen his skills in the school arcade. It was, no. He was not so good at Gauntlet Legends or Crazy Taxi.
Putting him on blast.
On blast, Paganelli.
I played Crazy Taxi on the Dreamcast and loved it.
Nice.
And it's the reason I had to move out of New York. I plunked so much of my tuition quarters into that thing. And then I started trying to drive like it was real. Brett, thank you so much. Again, Geekscape, that's Brett Weiss, Retro Gamer. Search for him on YouTube. And more importantly, go find him on Indiegogo.
Appreciate it.
Pre-order his products. Thank you so much, Brett, for coming on the show. Love you, buddy. Okay, so Katie, we got to talk. This is Katie Elsaesser, Geekscape, who are late to the program.
By the way, it's Elsaesser, but I like the attempt.
You know what? I'm going to say it however my dumb brain is going to say it.
El Sassy Pants to most.
El Sassy Pants, let's go ahead and talk. How do you think? You enjoying the co-host gig? Is it working for you? Is it not working for you? What do you got? You need notes?
I love that we're doing a post-interview live for everyone to see. I mean,
they love their free product. When they download it, they want it to be bonus-sized. So, Katie, Are you enjoying your Geekscape?
I am enjoying being a Geekscapist.
Okay, so Geekscape, if you're watching this live, you may notice that Heidi is now sitting behind me in the room. This is a blank room. We literally just moved into it today when Heidi's roommate moved out.
I'm still convinced you're in a bunker, but yeah.
But Heidi, I want you to understand, you can't hear Katie, but
No,
it's
I
okay.
can't hear anything.
Doesn't matter. Because we're going to tell you what's going to go down.
You're choosing now to do this.
Katie is an actress as well, and she uses that room that she's in right now, which is full of toys, like this one will soon be. And she's got her own self-tape area, and I think that was something that was very important to you when we moved into this blank room.
So
This is self-tape. Look at that. Now you'll notice that Katie's self-tape setup is on a roller that can be pulled down, and that there's artwork behind it.
It's seamless.
It is a nice little seamless roll down. She can do her self-tapes. It'll be great. I'm glad you like it because this is what will actually go on that wall behind the pull down that we will install for you. A giant Subway-sized Jean-Claude Van Damme kickboxer poster.
Subway size?
It is the kind of poster you would have in the subway system or on the buses.
Okay. Heidi, I'm so sorry.
Kickboxer poster. The Geekscapists have asked for it. They've demanded it. And that is what we're going to do. We're going to have that. And then whenever you want to hide it.
He's already denying you. She's straight up reading the comic.
Katie, we're getting some feedback. Jim says, Katie's a wonderful addition. She's a breath of fresh air who doesn't basically slander loyal viewers. I think Jim's talking about me.
Listen, Jim, I need you to upload that video so I can see the end of that game.
Oh, I dig it.
Yeah. Okay. So we got our. Katie is not just checking boxes here and doing some girl power stuff. We do not do that here on Geekscape.
Funny woman.
I'm the lady box. Just check that Xbox.
Heidi still is talking, but only the Geekscapers can hear. Hey, please, this is an audio medium. We need you to not talk in the background.
I just said I don't know what she's saying. That's all.
I know, and knowing that you are not part of the conversation, please, maybe you can go make dinner. Listen, so
help me out, Katie. Help me out.
You better get your ass in the kitchen right now, Jonathan. Wow, I got my man cooking on the patio right now. He is grilling.
Geekscape, this episode is falling apart real fast, but don't worry. We're going to be back tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel here on the stream with our good friend Gray Drake. So I will actually be completely outnumbered as a dude. Gray Drake, she writes for Rotten Tomatoes. She's a film reviewer, and she's a good friend. She hasn't been on the show in a long time. And I was like, hey, Gray, it's about time you and your crazy red hair come back on the show and hang out with Katie and I. We got to catch up with her. We love her, and she's going to be on the show tomorrow. So when you're watching the show and you're like, you know what, I don't got plans for Thursday, set that notification. We'll be right back tomorrow. And if you're listening to this late on the podcast, I want you to leave that review for us. Go ahead. It's okay if you leave a review that says Katie's amazing.
I'm okay with that.
So much. Can't wait. I subscribe for the day that Katie takes over the show. Might happen.
Wait, what? Wait,
I don't know.
I've got like 5 jobs going on right now.
Welcome to the pandemic. You just described as the new normal. But Geekscapes, we love you. Share Geekscape with your friends. We enjoy having you here. And I think that's it. Anything else you want to add, Katie?
I'd like to add that Jonathan needs to get in the kitchen, cook some meals for Heidi. I know she can't hear me, but I think she would agree that you should make her a sandwich.
Okay. Well, Wizard of Video Games said, rip Jonathan. And Rick said, where will Jonathan stream from when Heidi boots his ass to the curb? Perhaps these are things to discuss tomorrow on a brand new Geekscape. And also, we're going on a road trip next week. So we're going to be doing Geekscapes. But just like they're remote now, they're going to be from across America over the coming 2-3 weeks. So we're going to go ahead and do that.
My guy just brought me a glass of wine, so.
And Big Yanks, who's been here from the beginning, before I knew any of you, says, I don't want to share you, John. And you know what, baby? You're going to have to, because it's a popular medium, and I need the listeners. So share Geekscape with your friends. Love you all. That's Geekscape for you. for Katie, the Sassy Pants, over and out, Geekscape forever.